Mercedes Mone. Her wrestling name in AEW. Now, this person, the image on the screen, she goes by 3 different names. Let me explain why. Her career began in WWE, known as Sasha Banks. Now, when I say Sasha Banks, that is the same person as Mercedes Mone. What I mean is, WWE owns the name Sasha Banks, also known as Mercedes Mone. So, what I mean is, the only place that she can be named Sasha Banks is in only WWE. Whereas she can only be named Mercedes Mone in AEW, but no other company. Does that make sense? Okay. So she goes by 3 names. Sasha Banks, widely known from her career in WWE. Now her being in AEW, known as Mercedes Mone. And then her other name, Mercedes Bernardo. Now, so anytime I say any of these 3 names, it is the same person. It's just with the wrestling company, they own the rights to one specific name. So when she was in WWE, her wrestling name was Sasha Banks. The only wrestling company that she can be Sasha Banks is only in WWE. So, does that make sense? Okay. So, my reaction to Mercedes Mone being in AEW. Here's the thing. The only reason why she reached fame is because of her career in WWE. So, it does not make sense to me why she would go to AEW when the core reasoning of her fame was in WWE. Let me go in depth here a bit more. I mean, there's so many layers to this conversation about this person. Now, mind you, if this person was a guy, I would be saying the exact same thing. So this has nothing to do with gender. This is speaking about the wrestling of itself. Staying on topic, if that makes sense. So, Mercedes Mone. When she was in WWE, her wrestling name was Sasha Banks. Now, when she was in WWE, in my opinion, Mercedes Mone, also known as Sasha Banks, when she was in WWE, she really only had like one grade A quality match. And that was Sasha Banks versus what's her name? Charlotte Flair. Sasha Banks versus Charlotte Flair in that cage match. What year was it? I forget what year it was, but that was like the only one match that really stood out about Sasha Banks. Her performance within that match, her wrestling skills that were shown within that match, the storyline within that match, just everything. Sasha Banks, when she was in WWE, only really had one standout match. What I am saying is, Mercedes Mone, also known as Sasha Banks, yes, she is talented, but she is not. She's talented, but she's not that talented. Let me explain. And once again, if this was about a guy about the same topic, I would be saying the exact same thing. So don't try to say, oh, it's this gender thing. Anybody can apply to be a wrestler. But let's be honest, a very small percentage of wrestlers end up having a grade A, famous, long-term career within the business, while everyone else is just there and not really taken seriously to that top level. That can be said about any type of job in life, not just wrestling. Any employment that you have. So, what I'm saying is, Mercedes Mone, also known as Sasha Banks, when Sasha Banks was in WWE, Sasha Banks, like I just said, she only had one match that really stood out about her. Sasha Banks never had any consistent matches that stood out about her. Nothing consistent. It was basically just like a needle in a haystack. It was just very select few moments that helped Sasha Banks really stand out about herself. Whether it was her charisma, her promo skills, her wrestling abilities, and being consistent with that. Now, there's a few things about Mercedes Mone, also known as Sasha Banks, also known as Mercedes Varnado. Mind you, all those three names are the same person. She just goes by three different names, so there's a few things that really confuse me about her. When Sasha Banks, also known as Mercedes Mone, when she was in WWE, she was always complaining about wanting higher pay. Let me give you a great example. You work at an employment. Your consistent work hours every 2 weeks is 25 hours every 2 weeks. I'm just giving an example. I'm just throwing out numbers. Say every 2 weeks you work 25 hours. Sasha Banks was wanting more pay, like she's been there working like 100 hours every 2 weeks, when she has never done that. She was basically asking for a higher pay raise that she was not showing in the ring consistently, meaning her wrestling skills, her wrestling abilities. She was not showing her wrestling abilities consistently. But yet, she was complaining about wanting more pay. The two just does not make sense. The two does not go together. For example, like I just said, how can you work So, mind you, this example has nothing to do with wrestling, but it is an example to help you understand. If you work every 2 weeks on an average of 25 hours, how can you ask for more pay when you have never worked more hours consistently to earn that higher pay? You know? So, here's another thing. Mercedes Mone, also known as Sasha Banks. She always calls herself the boss, meaning like she would say this, "Oh, I'm my own boss." And then I would say, "No, you're not. Let me explain." Yes, Mercedes Mone, also known as Sasha Banks, it's basically the same person, just under different names. Yes, she can apply to be a wrestler with any wrestling company. Yeah, you could do that. But that's not being your own boss. Being your own boss, by definition, is you owning your own business, your own company. To Mercedes Mone, you don't own a company. You just had the right to be a wrestler with any company. That can be said about anybody. For example, you have the right to apply for a job anywhere. Does that mean that you are your own boss? No. You can only definitively say that you are your own boss when you own a company. So, in AEW, her wrestling name is Mercedes Mone, but her catchphrase is like CEO, meaning like the very highest level position of a company. It's like you're not a boss, meaning you don't own your own company. You're not a CEO of any company. AEW owns you, Mercedes Mone. Mercedes Mone, you do not own AEW. AEW is a specific company that gave you the opportunity to wrestle for AEW. Now, mind you, once again, if this topic was about a wrestler that was a guy, I would be saying the exact same thing if everything was lined up the exact same way. Let me continue. Is Mercedes Mone a talented wrestler? Yes. She has shown at times, few and far in between, that yes, she is talented at promos. Yes, she is talented at wrestling. The point is, to Mercedes Mone, also known as Sasha Banks, you have not shown that you are that talented consistently. Once you show that you are a grade A talent consistently, then the topic can be discussed on whether or not Mercedes Mone definitively earned or deserves higher pay. Once again, that could be said about anybody wanting higher pay within any employment that he or she decides to do. If I were Mercedes Mone, this is just my opinion. Opinions. Everyone has one. You can agree, you could disagree. Your choice. If I were her, I would have went back to WWE because the only reason why she reached fame was because of WWE. Now, mind you, her going to AEW, her choice. Do I think that it was the right choice? No. Yes, she got higher pay within a contract in AEW, but it doesn't make sense until she has shown that her wrestling matches are shown consistently to say that she deserves higher pay. And once again, if this was a guy wrestler being this exact same way, I would be saying the exact same thing. A one final example. Anybody could say, I want to be a wrestler. Anybody could say, I want to be the main event as a wrestler. Anybody could say, once I become a wrestler on television, I want higher pay. Well, how can the audience see that you definitively deserve higher pay without wrestling or showing your greatest of wrestling abilities consistently? There has to be something about you that stands out consistently. Mind you, in WWE, in my opinion, Sasha Banks, also known as Mercedes Mone, she really only had one standout match. Her, Mercedes Mone, versus Charlotte Banks. No, Mercedes Mone, also when she was in WWE, Sasha Banks versus Charlotte Flair. So when it was Sasha versus Charlotte in that cage match in WWE, that was the one match the only one match that stood out. So what I will say is Mercedes Mone talented? Yes. Is she grade A plus talented? Not yet.